Frederick Douglass is not my real name. A fugitive slave. What year I was born, I do not know. My mother and I were separated when I was still too young to know her as my mother. As a child, I knew indescribable hunger. I remember fighting with yard dogs for scraps of food, thrown away as garbage. I've often been utterly astonished to hear persons who speak of the singing of the slave as evidence of his contentment and happiness. This is a terrible mistake. The songs of the slave represent the sorrows of his heart. I've sat on Kennard's Wharf at the foot of Philpott Street in Baltimore, and I've seen men and women chained and put on a ship to go to New Orleans.
Frederick.
I still hear their cries.
Frederick, it's so early in the morning.
I'm just going through some old files and notes. I might find something interesting for the women's conference this afternoon.
They're not expecting you to make a formal speech. Will you not even have breakfast?
I won't be long. I just want to be prepared.
You said that before sunup.
I won't be long.
A, B, C.
Very good, Fred. Go on.
G, H, I, J, K.
What in God's name do you think you're doing?
Didn't mean any harm.
If you give a nigger an inch, he will take a mile. If you teach that nigger how to read, there would be no keeping him. It would forever ruin him to be a slave. We carried you here to take care of Thomas. You'll learn a trade when you're bigger. Ain't no need for you to be reading, boy. No need at all.
I understand, dear. I'll see to it that it's not allowed to be near any more books.
There's nothing more needs saying.
I have little hope in the freedom of the slave by peaceful means. More than 2 centuries of slavery has placed the slave holders beyond the reach of moral and humane considerations.
Get up!
The only penetrable point of a tyrant is fear of death.
So you mean to resist me, a scoundrel? Yes, sir.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress.
Anna, I shall not marry you as a slave.
Then I reckon you should go up north.
Words come easily. If I'm caught this time, Lord knows what might happen.
But you off the plantation now, Fred. No patrollers to stop you in Baltimore. You learned yourself a trade in a shipyard. There's work for you up there, and freedom. I saved up some. I got some belongings I can sell. Enough for the New York train.
Anna.
See, Frederick Douglass has joined us. Please, come up and share your thoughts with us.
Mr. Coffin, I'm not very used to speaking like this.
Just speak, Fred. What's in your thoughts?
Frederick Douglass is not my real name. I'm a fugitive slave. What year I was born, I do not know. My mother and I were separated when I was still too young. I resolved that whatever power I had should be devoted to the freeing of my race.
My friends, have we been listening to a thing, a piece of property, or to a man? Will you allow this man to be carried back into slavery?
Certainly, and we'll get him started here in Massachusetts until he becomes accustomed to traveling and speaking. Oh, Mr. Douglas.
I don't believe you've met Mr. Garrison.
I'm honored, sir.
I was deeply moved by your address. You have a great gift, Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison.
You say you never had any formal schooling?
No, sir.
Not even after you escaped?
No, sir. I've been teaching myself ever since I was a youngster.
Amazing.
Impressive. Really is.
Mr. Douglas, Mr. Collins and Mr. Raymond and I were just discussing your becoming an agent for the society. Traveling as a lecturer, if you will.
Mr. Garrison, I've hardly the ability to speak
Oh, nonsense. You speak with full conviction and authority.
If there is no struggle, there is no progress. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one. Within or without the Union, slavery must fall. The long-crushed Negro must rise. Ethiopia. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? There's not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Kill the nigger!
Fred, no, Fred!
No, Senator Calhoun! No! Slavery cannot